By now, you're probably aware that YouTubers can make a lot of money, but here's what I bet you don't know. The vast majority of them are paying way less taxes than you. Influencers that are buying Teslas, taking an expensive trip to Italy, or vlogging about their $100,000 shopping haul, all of them are able to pay way less taxes than your average person, and the crazy part? It's completely legal. In this video, I'm going to share with you the secrets that almost all influencers use to pay as little taxes as humanly possible. I'm going to show you how an influencer making $200,000 a year will pay way less taxes than the average person who works a 9-to-5 job getting paid $60,000. Make sure you watch until the end because I'm going to show you how you can do it too. First off, you might be wondering how I know about these legal tax reduction strategies. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Kong and I have been making viral videos on YouTube for the last 8 years. I've started multiple YouTube channels that have over 4 million subscribers and over 1 billion views. These channels have generated millions of dollars in revenue. And yet, I pay way less taxes than all my friends do at their 9-to-5 jobs. Now, I'm not saying this because I want to show off to you. That's what I have Instagram for. I'm giving you all this context to let you know that I've built my entire career on YouTube. I've been immersed in the influencer community for years, and therefore, I know everything that goes on behind the scenes. Seriously, I mean, everything. So, what are the tax-saving tricks that I learned from being immersed in the community and from my absurdly expensive accountant? Well, it all comes down to accounting. And it's not nearly as complicated or as boring as you may think. Now, before we get into it, I just want to say that this video is not financial, legal, or tax advice in any way whatsoever. Everything in this video is for entertainment purposes only. All right, now that that's over with, here's how it works. In the simplest of terms, the amount of taxes you pay is a percentage of your income. So if John makes $40,000 a year and Sally makes $50,000 a year, and they both pay 30% in taxes, John is going to pay less taxes because he makes less money. John is going to pay less taxes because he has a lower income. See how that works? Obviously, tax calculations are more complicated than that. In the US, the percentage that you pay depends on the bracket that you're in, but let's keep things simple. For the sake of this example, all you need to understand right now is that the lower your income is, the lower your taxes will be. Now, there's a way to lower your income as an influencer to therefore lower the amount of money that you get taxed on. This is where tax deductions come in. If you're an entrepreneur, you've definitely heard of tax deductions before, but an influencer takes advantage of tax deductions like nobody else in the world. For those of you that don't know, a deduction is when you claim that a portion of your income went towards an expense that you had to pay in order to get that income. And what a lot of people don't know is that you can legally lower your income by deducting all of your expenses. So how does that play out in reality? Well, the easiest example is this. Let's say I made $100,000 this year, but in order to get that income, I had to spend $50,000 in Facebook ads. That's just my marketing expense. So that's a deduction on my income. So because I spent that $50,000 on Facebook ads, now my income is not $100,000, it's $50,000. That is a very simple way to explain it. Obviously an oversimplification, but you get the point. Now, that's how it works if you're a business. If you're employed by a typical company, you can't really deduct that much from your income. The business or the company that you work for can, but you as an employee cannot, or at least you're very limited. However, as an influencer, there's a key major difference. I, as an influencer, am considered a business, and therefore, I'm able to deduct a wide variety of expenses. The obvious one, as I mentioned before, would be something like marketing expenses, or maybe I paid rent for my office. But those expenses are normal for pretty much any business. As an influencer, you can get away with a lot more. So let's do a side-by-side comparison here. So let's say you're making $60,000 per year working as an employee at some company. Generally speaking, you would pay about 25% in federal plus state taxes. As a side note, of course, this percentage varies based on what state you live in, 401k contributions, IRAs, etc., etc. But for the sake of this example, let's just say on a high level, you pay 25% in taxes, which equates to $15,000. Now, on the other hand, let's say your friend's Logan, who lives next door to you, is an influencer and makes vlogs on YouTube. He makes $200,000 per year. However, as an influencer, he can get that number to be lower by deducting expenses that were used to help him run his business. In the end, because his income is lower, he will pay less taxes. And he could eventually get it to a point where he's paying less taxes than you. Here are some examples. Let's say Logan buys a $2,000 MacBook because he needs it to edit videos. That's a business expense. And now his reported income is $198,000 for the year. Now let's say you buy a $2,000 MacBook because you like editing videos on the weekends. You want to edit your trip to Italy with your friends and put it on Facebook. You cannot deduct this from your income because you're an employee, you're not a business. What you're doing has nothing to do with any business that's generating income. Your income is still $60,000. Let's say Logan rents a new apartment to vlog in for $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year. Yep. You guessed it, his income is now $174,000. For you? Sorry, you can't deduct your apartment's rent, so your taxable income is still $60,000. Over the course of a year, Logan pays for designer shoes, high-end clothing, and weekly haircuts. All of this comes out to $30,000 a year. Because he's an influencer and all these things are purchased for his videos, he can deduct all of this from his income. His income is now at $144,000. Now, even though you also pay for haircuts, clothes, and shoes throughout the year, you cannot deduct this from your income. So your taxable income stays the same. Now let's say Logan buys a brand new Tesla so that he can review it on his channel and maybe do some pranks or some stunts with it as well. That's $120,000 more that he can deduct. Now he's at $24,000 of taxable income. Now if you buy a car, you can't deduct it from your income. That means you're still at $60,000. So let's calculate how much you both have to pay in taxes. For you, you still have to pay 25% of $60,000, which is $15,000, same as before. Logan, on the other hand, pays 25% of $24,000, which is $6,000. So while Logan makes way more money than you, he pays less than half of what you do in taxes, simply because he is an influencer. Now I gotta stop here because I know some of you tax nerds are like,
oh my God, that's not how taxes work, you idiot.
I understand, this is an oversimplification. If you guys want more information on how exactly tax law works, I'll leave some links in the description. But the main point still stands. Influencers pay way less taxes than you because they have a much wider range of things that they can deduct as a business expense. That lowers their income, and therefore that lowers the amount of taxes they pay. And look, if you think the examples I gave so far were crazy, that's only scratching the surface. Here are some other things that I have personally deducted as a business expense. The time that I spent $500 for my friends and I to go hang gliding, that was a deduction. The time I spent $800 on a parasailing trip, that was a deduction. The time I booked a hotel room at the Ritz-Carlton for me and my friends that cost $1,300 per night, that was a deduction. What about that time I spent over $3,500 on my Coachella trip and vlogged it? That was a deduction. My $4,000 trip to London, my $2,000 trip to Vancouver, my $3,000 trip to Hong Kong and Amsterdam and Vietnam and Thailand, all deductions. Every flight I booked, every Uber I took, every meal I ate. Over the course of a few years, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in deductions. Even when I grab dinner with friends or go out for drinks, I usually end up talking about business and getting their advice on a lot of things, so therefore, that's a deduction. When I first learned about this, The range of things you can write off felt so ridiculous that at one point I literally asked my accountant if I could write off my dog as a deduction. Turns out it's a gray area, so I didn't do it. But people don't realize that when you are an influencer, a lot of your everyday purchases can be deducted as a business expense to lower your income. And therefore, it lowers the amount of taxes you pay. And the craziest part about all of this is that it is completely legal. Now, for full transparency here, in reality, tax deductions are more complex than what I described. There's actual criteria for what qualifies as an expense based on what kind of business you are, and you can't always deduct 100% of that expense. But the point of this video, as I mentioned, is not to give you an in-depth explanation of how tax deduction works. The point of this video is to illustrate how influencers legally pay lower taxes than your average person who makes the same amount. And if you're watching this video thinking,
"What the f, Khan? That's not fair,"
I would say, you're absolutely right. It's not fair to the people who didn't even know that this was an option in the first place. It's not fair to the average person because they didn't understand that they could even do something like this. It's not fair that most of us were never taught that pursuing an unconventional career path like becoming an influencer or starting your own business comes with a lot of benefits that your average 9-to-5 job simply doesn't have. And that's the reason I made this video. That's the reason why I created this channel, to let you know that there's not just one path in life, there are many. So now that you know how influencers pay less taxes than the average person, how can you take this knowledge and use it to your advantage? As I mentioned before, the system is unfair, but only to people who don't have this knowledge. In reality, it actually is very fair because anybody can become self-employed if they want to. Anybody can take advantage of these legal rules to lower their income if they create their own business. So my challenge to you is this: start your own side hustle. It can be a YouTube channel, it can be an Instagram, it can be an Etsy store where you sell bracelets. Hell, it can even be a lemonade stand. It doesn't matter. Start a side hustle and work your ass off on your nights and weekends. When you get home at 5 p.m. from your regular job that you just clocked out of, don't go home and watch Netflix. Work on your side hustle, because that side hustle could eventually turn into a profitable business where you can take advantage of these tax deductions like influencers do. And look, it's not going to be easy. It's going to take hard work. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But once you become successful, once you see a glimpse of success, that comes with a ton of benefits. Once you start making money from your business, you can deduct business expenses and pay less taxes. Deductions don't just apply to influencers, it applies to any business you start. Now, keep in mind that different businesses can deduct different things. Influencers have a very wide variety of things they can deduct, but compared to your 9-to-5 job, any business you start will provide you with way more options to lower your income. All you have to do is pick an interest or a hobby that you're passionate about and turn it into a business. If you go the influencer route, then you can be the person that's writing off your apartment's rent, your car payments, your plane tickets, the cost of your clothes, all as business expenses. On top of that, you might just discover that pursuing this unconventional career path makes you happier and more fulfilled as well. It's a win-win. So there you have it. Now you know how influencers pay less taxes than you, and now you also know how you can do it as well. If you're interested in learning how to start a YouTube channel, I have a step-by-step course that you can try out. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel to get more insights on entrepreneurship and finance, and occasionally some sexy pictures of me. I'll see you guys next time.